Today I'm out on Horsetooth Reservoir in Fort Collins, Colorado, rather, doing some paddleboarding. If you have any interest in watching, I am going to have a video of myself, a POV video of myself paddling around the lake. As you might notice, I made this channel, I don't know, quite a long time ago, and I haven't really updated it. And part of the reason why is because I originally made this channel right after my wife told me she wanted a divorce. And I was just looking for an outlet or a way to show, if I'm being honest, maybe she would see it. Maybe she would think my videos were funny and would change her mind. And obviously that's kind of a stupid reason to make videos, but if I'm being honest with myself, that's sort of what happened. I don't know if it came across in those videos, but that was by far the hardest time of my life. I mean, I wasn't eating, I was barely sleeping. When my son was with me, I was doing my best to be present for him, but it was really, really, really hard. Slowly, as time went on, I've started to heal a little bit more. After about a year, unfortunately, the company that I founded, we had brought on some investors, and I got let go from that company. So, within the span of a year and a half, two of the three things I define myself as, one is being a father, the other was being a husband, and the third was being an owner of a successful business. So, as you can imagine, this has all hit me pretty hard. And even now, 3 years after my wife left and 2 years after losing the business, I still am struggling with that lack of identity. I don't really know who I am anymore, and that's something I need to find out. Now, I am blessed with a plethora of free time. Due to some smart investments and the fact that I live a pretty frugal lifestyle, I have time to think and I have time to do things and explore. And one of the things that I'm sort of realizing is, for me, the world is just too noisy. And I don't mean just like the actual sound of living in a city, although the sound of traffic and jackhammers and construction equipment and lawnmowers, all of that is very, very noisy. I mean just the noise of our existence. News articles, political controversy, everyone having to have an opinion on everything, like the never-ending chaos feed of social media getting pumped right into your brain, and the feeling that you can never, ever, ever keep up. And so I've come to the conclusion that I think I feel most like myself when I'm in a quiet place, when I'm away from people in general, away from crowds, and when I'm in nature. And so I've been trying to spend some time, as you probably noticed through a couple of the videos on this channel, making videos about hikes to give me a reason to go out and be in nature, but also as a reason to practice my craft, which one of the things I've done for basically my whole life is make videos. I'm not saying I'm the best, but it's something I enjoy and that I would really like to keep doing. So given that I feel the most like me, and I think I see the world the clearest when I'm out in nature, I'm going to try to make some videos, POV videos, as I've been doing, because I really enjoy those. As I mentioned, I'm doing one of this paddleboarding trip at Horsetooth Reservoir. But I also just want to talk to the camera while I'm out here and while I feel like my mind is clear. For a couple reasons. First, it helps me clarify my thoughts. Second, I'm hoping that this isn't a waste of time and that at some point, some person will find something of value here who may be struggling through a similar situation. And the third, because, you never know how long we've got, and Lord forbid something happens to me, I'd like to have some things available for my son to, hopefully learn some things while I am around. And hopefully, again, I'm not prefacing something horrible, but you never know. I would just like to have something for him so he can maybe learn from some of the mistakes I've made or from some of the hardships I've gone through. So I want to go back a little bit and talk about my life. I'm the child of two divorced parents. Fortunately, everybody still lives within close distance of each other, so I haven't lost contact with any of my family or any of my friends. And I've always been super into computers and super into writing, and as I mentioned, super into video editing. So, one of the things that I sort of learned early in my life is that I don't think the traditional route would have been for me. getting a corporate job, sitting at a desk, filing quarterly reports. These things just it wouldn't have worked for me. I mean, if it was a matter of that or starving to death, sure, I could have done it. Given that's not the way I envisioned my life going, I had always spent my time trying to start something of my own. So, when I was 12, 13, I started making websites for my gaming teams, my like gaming clans. I ended up being one of the first quote unquote professional gamers. We were sponsored by the old corporation Cyrix to play Red Alert and StarCraft and Quake 2. So anyway, I learned how to do, web design as it was back in the mid to late 90s, building websites for my company or for my clans, guilds, whatever you want to call them. And then that led into, you know, seeing this is a really valuable skill and was pretty good at it. And I think I learned pretty quickly. I decided to start making websites for other things. So I made, one of my first big websites was called purecheats.com. And it was a gaming cheat code website. And I would update the cheat codes by hand, like 30 to 50 of them a day. Looking back, that was a really dumb way to do it, but it's how I knew at the time. And eventually that site got to the point where it had, 30, 40, 50 million views. I was making a decent amount of money on ads. So, because in the late 90s, early 2000s, which is when that site came to be, you could actually make money off of banner ads. And so after that, I went on and I started a site called nukewinter.com, which is my gaming alias. And that was like a gaming review, gaming news site. It never made any money, but it was like a really great way to do practice writing, practice web design. I could be more creative. And then I went on to develop sites called LookScore, which was an ill-fated idea, but it was a hot or not competitor for those of you who remember that site. But instead of just rating, is this person hot or not, and giving them a scale of 1 to 10, I had it to where you could rate each person's body parts on a scale of 1 to 10. So you could rate their face, their legs, their arms, their chest, their butt. I never actually launched it because, I realized, wow, this is kind of a ridiculous idea for a product. But then I started a site called buyfinder.net, which was a price comparison search engine. It never got off the ground because there was too many competitors, but I did learn a lot. Long story short, I did a bunch of projects like this for 4 to 5 years up until my mid-20s, and then I had an idea for this site called Jamplay, which basically was a way to learn guitar online through video lessons. And I know that sounds kind of, wow, big deal, but at the time, YouTube wasn't really a thing. I mean, YouTube existed, but it wasn't anywhere near as popular as it is now. And, we started off with the methodology of we wanted to have multiple teachers teaching the same thing because everybody teaches a little differently. Everybody learns differently. Obviously, there's visual learners, there's kinesthetic learners, there's auditory learners, blah, blah, blah. So me and my now ex-wife started the business sort of together. We came up with the idea together, but she wasn't able to come work for us for a while. She needed to make some money and, had an odd job at a call center that wasn't great, but, it did help her learn some cool skills. And we launched it with 2 business partners. One of them was my gaming buddy and the other one was his friend. And against all odds, this business actually worked. And it grew pretty rapidly from between, I want to say, 2009 to 2016. I mean, we were doing really well. And we were making decent money. Life was good. I loved my employees. I tried to take care of them. I tried to be the kindest person to all the teachers that we employed. We tried to do right by our customers. Like, I was keeping my body fit. I knew my purpose, and I had a pretty good life. Well, not too long after that, one of my business partners became kind of sick of the business, and he decided to get it in his head to try to sell it. And so he was constantly reaching out to people, constantly making us have phone calls with people who he thought he could sell the business to. And this did one of 2 things. Like, it made it really hard to work because we didn't know if there was a long-term to work towards. And I've always been a long-term worker. I'm not motivated by, what's going to happen in the next 3 months. I'm motivated, where will this business be in 5 years or 10 years? And when you're trying to sell the company, or as I come to find out, when you get investors, you are not able to think that way. So, the leadership team was not, we weren't our best, if I'll be honest with you. We weren't making the best decisions, and really the only thing in the business that was going well was content production and acquisition. But obviously, if you're not able to market things right, or the people doing marketing are not motivated, that's going to really hurt you. So, we talked with 6, 7 companies about buying our website. One of them was one of the biggest guitar makers in the world. I won't say who because I don't know if the NDA is still valid, but let's just say they scammed us, acted like they were really interested in the product, and then lo and behold, they backed out at the last second. They said, we don't need you, and they started their own product using all the information that we learned. Come to find out, they did this to a few other companies as well. So anyway, I was starting to get frustrated with life in general around this time. Not because I didn't love the business, but just because, we were in this mode of always just looking for a buyer so that Kevin could get out. Like I said, Chris and I, my other business partner, we didn't know if we were going to be able to stay in the business, what the terms would be. So we were pretty uncertain about our future. And I think that demotivated both of us to some degree. I was obviously managed to keep working. Well, at the same time, frustratingly enough, I had a house and found out there was going to be a fracking well in our neighborhood. And I don't want to call myself a hypochondriac, but the idea of living next to a petroleum production facility didn't sit well with me. So we decided to move over to another town, 25 minutes, around 25 minutes then, probably 40 now with traffic. Really short, right? Well, for some reason, I am a person who gets super attached to a sense of place. And that was really, really hard for me. I experienced very, very, very intense homesickness, a lack of feeling like I belonged, and I would say probably put me into like a low-level depression for many years, which, I think was the start of the problems with my wife at the time, ex-wife. Right after we moved, we found out we were going to become parents, which is the best thing in the world. We also found out that the place we moved had 3 intersecting railroad tracks, which our real estate agent neglected to mention, and trains would run through these railroad tracks probably 10 to 15 times per day, many times at night. And due to federal regulations, these train conductors or engineers, whatever you call them, had to ring their horn, blow their horn for 10 seconds at every intersection. A lot of intersections. So basically it was nonstop noise for 15 minutes. So on top of feeling like pretty depressed about moving and just out of place, I was not sleeping. I don't think I slept a full night in the entire year and a half that we lived there. And obviously, you can imagine when my son came along, the sleeping situation got much, much worse. And so, between the chaos of not knowing what was going to happen with my business and just wanting stability with that, not sleeping, feeling like I didn't belong where I lived, and having a new child, I felt really, really overwhelmed, and I sort of retreated into myself. And at the same time, my wife's mom passed away, actually 4 days before our son was born, and she was really hurting. And because of the new baby and all the other things I mentioned, I will say with a small amount of shame that I wasn't there to comfort her in the way I needed to be. So, fast forward about a year and a half, and we moved to the other end of town where we could sleep a little better, and things started getting, better, and I was able to become myself a little more. Eventually, I told Kevin and Chris that I had no interest in selling the business anymore and that it needed to stop, at which time it led to a mini scuffle with Kevin, because he didn't want to work on the business anymore. We had to get lawyers involved, but in the end, it worked out for all of us, and I'm still friends with Kevin to this day, and Chris and I still get along quite well too, so I can't complain about that. Right around January 2018, my wife told me she needed a little bit of a break from me, and this sent me into an absolute spiral. I flipped out. I was crying constantly, begging her not to leave, which, by the way, gentlemen, if a woman wants to leave, do not beg. It's pathetic, and it just turns them off anyway. I'm not saying you can't try to fix whatever your problems are, but don't behave like I did. And, we worked things through, I guess. I mean, it was never the same after that, but we did manage to work things through. I have a feeling she stuck around mostly because of her son, but I started trying to build our life up again. And then, later that year, we got a call from somebody who was, again, interested in buying our business. And, I didn't want to do it. So I said, Chris, you have to handle everything. I don't want to be part of this. I don't have it in me to deal with the stress. I don't want to waste my time doing it, whatever. So I didn't hear anything about it for 3 months. But long story short, it ended up going through. Chris and I were supposed to stay on, work for the company, be paid a fair salary. And we were told we'd be able to basically run things like we did. I don't. And that happened in November or December of 2019. Well, I'm sure you guys all know that the next couple of years were a bit chaotic. And I'll be honest with you, COVID was not the hardest part for me, but it was experiencing what a government looks like who can lock you in your home and tell you can't work. That was like super troubling for me. But we all got through it. We were super patient. Nobody I knew got really ill at all. So thankful for that. And bought a new house because my wife had always wanted a house instead of a townhouse. And I thought, I can do something for her for once. And we moved in. Actually, it was really nice having a backyard for the first time with our son. It's right across the street from the school. And then later the next year, I took my son on a 2.5-week road trip. And when I came back, my wife was gone. Ex-wife was gone. So as you can imagine, that sent me into a spiral. And gentlemen, let me tell you something. I have not yet lost a parent, but I cannot imagine an experience that was harder. I don't know if there is an experience that's harder if you're truly in love with your partner and the most important thing to you is your family. But that's what happened. And she left and we worked out a 50-50 schedule with our son. And, I was pretty bummed out to only see him half the time. But since then, I've come to realize that maybe I only see him half the time, but I can be present for him all of that time. I can spend time with him. I can take him hiking. I can take him to play laser tag, take him rock climbing. I can read to him at night. So, if anything, our relationship maybe has gotten better. I'm about to crash into a tree here. Let's go ahead and backpedal. So, as I was saying before the battery went dead, partially because I was, depressed and probably not doing my best work and wasn't as enthusiastic as my normal self, and partly because we had some pretty severe disagreements with the new leadership team that we had with our company, which was now basically what they did is they took 4 companies and combined them into one. I was let go for my position, no warning. They said I didn't do anything wrong, and it wasn't about that. But the fact is, whatever the reason was, which to this day I don't know. Ironically enough, I don't know the reason my wife left either. But I was let go, and that was just to me, the final nail in my sanity coffin. I no longer knew who I was. I was still a dad, still a son, I was still a brother, but those roles weren't how I defined myself aside from being a father. And I felt like my role as a father was compromised by my lack of being able to see my son every night. And so, one of the things I'm proud that I did during this period was, I would record a story for my son to listen to every night because I didn't have any way to talk with him when he was with his mom. So I would make up stories. If you really want to see it, it's a YouTube channel called Stories from My Life. And then once he got a tablet, and he would call me on Skype and I would read to him every night. So I feel like, I did a really good job of being a dad at that time of my life. And that's one thing I'm really proud of. But as any of you who have had a rapid life-altering change know, that feeling of listlessness, of just wandering around and not knowing what the heck to do or who the heck you are, does not really fade, and it still hasn't faded. And I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life. I don't know who I want to be aside from a good father and a good partner to my new girlfriend, Sarah. What I do know is that, as I mentioned, when I'm out in nature, when I'm on the water or on a trail or next to the ocean or wherever, I feel better. What I do know is when I'm traveling with my son, I definitely feel better. And so I want to take some of these epiphanies about myself to figure out who I am again, or at the very least, pass on some of the lessons that I've learned and that I've thought about to other people. So maybe my experiences can help you. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but at least there's a chance. So I'm going to try to do more POV videos, as I mentioned. I'm going to do videos on things that interest me: philosophy, reading, books, videography, hiking. And I'm going to just do talking head videos like this, videos with crappy production value, where I'm just trying to get something out into a form that I can watch later. Maybe I'll post it, maybe I won't. I don't know. But I feel like nature, to some degree, is healing me. When I'm out in nature, I can at least see my life more clearly. I can see what was my role in losing the job at the company I built. What was my role in losing my marriage? How are these things impacting my current relationships? What do I actually value? Do I value my career? Do I value my free time? Do I value my freedom? Do I value my son? Obviously, yes, I value some of those things more than others. A couple of lessons I've learned is I value my freedom far more than I value career, and maybe that's because I had an amazing career and accomplished what I set out to. And I value not having financial stress versus having things. I value physical things where I have to engage my mind and body. Rock climbing, paddleboarding, hiking. Believe it or not, laser tag. I'm turning into a huge laser tag nerd with my son. It's really great. Shout out to Love and Laser Tag. And yeah, I've also learned that nature is a healer. Nature, for some reason, gets us in touch with who we are at a deeper level, undistracted by news or cell phones or current events or politics. Like when I'm out here, I don't care about who's going to be the president. I just see something that, while not timeless, is timeless in relation to the minusculity, if that's a word, of my life. So I feel part of a larger something. I feel like a small part of this large planet, this large universe we live in. And that's sort of freeing, realizing I'm not the center of the universe. My problems aren't the center of the universe. And the best I can do is be me and be the best version of me I can. And that's the best thing I can do for the world. And hence, coming back to making these videos. I feel guilty doing such low production value and talking to my GoPro because I'm afraid of dropping my phone in the reservoir. So yeah, that's this channel is going to be me, the epiphanies, the things I think about as I try to rediscover who I am and what I want the rest of my life to be. I'm 43. I'm pretty healthy. I hope there's a long time left, but I don't want to waste this time I've been giving and the blessings I have where, due to some investments I've made, I do have a little more free time than average. So if I can close saying one thing, it's to those of you struggling and going through something extremely hard, you will come out the other side of it. And all I can recommend is try to use it as a time to grow as opposed to sinking into alcohol or drug use. I will say I'm proud. The day I found out my wife left me, the first thing I did was go to the gym. And it was a terrible workout. I felt like I was going to puke the entire time. I didn't lift much. I didn't stay too long. But that was my reaction, not to drink or do, other self-destructive things. Use this as a time to read books. I love all of Ryan Holiday's books. I've really come to espouse a lot of the ideals of Stoicism. If you're religious, take time to read and study the Bible. Take time to get your health in order, to start eating better. And I know all this sounds so damn impossible when you're feeling that way, but you're going to look at it in retrospect and you're going to be happy and proud of yourself that you handled it in the most constructive way you could. Because again, if you're going through divorce or grieving or have a job loss or a career loss or unanticipated life changes, you're not going to feel your best, but you can choose how to channel that energy. You can try to frame it in a more positive fashion. You can try to do all those things. And so I hope some of you can perhaps try a little of that if you're suffering. I will say the one thing I'm very proud of myself is how I handled that. I didn't handle it perfectly, but I was there for my son. I did the best that I could. I tried to learn and grow and use it as a traumatic growth experience. I wasn't sad. Sad almost every day, It's not to say a piece of me doesn't feel like it's missing. It still does, even though I have a wonderful new girlfriend. Um, I don't know if I'll ever feel completely whole again. I don't know. Hopefully, with time that comes. And, there's going to be like anything involving grief. There's going to be times where you are going to feel grief months, years, maybe even decades after. But the grief gets less severe and less frequent. So the interval is shorter as well as the duration. And you get to the point where you can start feeling like yourself again. One of the things that helped me was just remembering, like, yeah, I was with my wife 16, 17 years, but that's not even half my life. So I exist as my own individual person. And I hope you all realize that you do too. You exist, you're whole, you're complete without companies, without relationships. Well, without romantic relationships. Obviously, we all need people in our life, but I think you know what I mean. So I hope that I can provide you guys with something useful. Um, Pardon me if this video is a little rambling. I'm not used to making this kind of video where I just talk without any script whatsoever. So please take care of yourselves. If you are doing well in life, appreciate it. Enjoy every moment. Be as present as you can. Put your damn phone down. If you're suffering, you got this. You'll come out the other side better, stronger, as long as you put the right mindset into it. So, yeah, once again, if you don't know me, I'm Jeffrey, and I will see you in the next video. I have no idea what it will be about. Until then.